Community. I am
Community.
so honored, privileged, overwhelmed with love and joy to be bringing to you a woman who really, even in this moment before I hit record, grounded me in love. So thank you. So I introduce Gail Craft, who is an empowerment master, which I love, really helping other people kind of cleanse the lens of their soul, right? To step into who they're meant to be.
Right. It's facing your demons and loving them.
Ooh, that is so good.
Yes.
So what? Yeah. So I guess the question it begs to be asked: what is facing your demons and loving them?
So, one of the misconceptions of coaching is to get past, to heal. Number one, you're whole, so you're not broken. You don't need to heal, right? To get past, you're in the moment. Why would you want to get past the moment? That's the only thing that's real, right? And to let it go. I'm saying life is a polarity, right? And so you can't, like you and I can't be the light that we are if there wasn't a point in our life where we were pretty much the opposite, right? I
Mm.
mean, I was pretty nasty, right? And so I know what the dark side is, and I don't bury it. That's who I am, and I embrace it. So when emotions come up, right, you sit in the moment. Now, stories will attach to it, and you want to tell the stories. You're the past, but what's going on right now? What is my body telling me I need to pay attention to right now? And I look at it like a little child, right? If a child is pulling on my leg, crying because something's wrong, am I going to say, go away? Am I going to say later? Am I going to say stop? No, I'm going to get down on my legs, on my knees, and say, honey, what's wrong?
Yes.
We don't do that to ourselves.
Absolutely. And I love, you gave me permission to do that right before I hit record, right? So I had a couple of things that transpired, and I knew I would not be able to be present if I really didn't allow myself to sink into the experience of this moment, whatever comes up, and be present with it without expectation.
Right.
And so I understand how critical that is in experiencing life free from, you know, the dogma. I think that many people fall trapped
Oh
to.
my God. Let's go.
But you mentioned it. So you and I couldn't be the light if we didn't experience our own darkness. And of course, in this interview series, it's all about what's your story. So what is the catalyst for you to have started to step into your own light?
So I've had quite a few, but the major turning point where I walked away from corporate, I got fired, deservedly so, right? Um, and I sued their butt. And you can imagine with a lawyer, the rat hole that you go down, right? And I was becoming more and more toxic, more and more nasty, and after about a year, I looked in the mirror and I said, I don't like who you are. Now I need to figure you out. When I lived on the East Coast, I was very successful in corporate. I moved to the West Coast and I get fired. I'm the common denominator. What's going
Mm.
on? Right. Um, and I went to my lawyer and I said, no, we're not going to court. Let's just, litigate, get this thing over with, and mediate and let me move on. And so we did that. And I started becoming an entrepreneur and I fell into life coaching. I took a life coaching class, training course, because I wanted to communicate better with my clients.
Ooh, so good. Yeah.
Right. And as soon as I started, I was like, that is why I was successful as a leader, because all of the lessons you're talking about, listen, give them what they need, hold space, right? Ask the right question, ask the leading questions. Don't give the answers, let the answers come. All of that basic stuff I did as a leader, right? So it was, oh my God, this is what I'm here for. And from that point on, I was pulled.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I have no choice once you
Yeah.
open up.
Well, so it's interesting. So you went through this life coaching certification, recognizing that, you know, you're not happy. So what I love is you took action. And so many people, I think, recognize they're suffering, they're not fulfilled, but they just sit in that feeling rather than taking action to try to shift and change out of it. And then you take this life coaching course and you recognize that inherently you're doing all of the things, right?
Right.
That you're being taught to do for people in leadership, which is a similar experience to myself. What then did you do to help yourself move into a person that you could look into the mirror and say, "Ooh, I really like you"?
It's called accountability and intentionality and walking the talk is really important for me, not to just be someone who is trained and sit with someone as a coach, but someone who's experientially gone through it herself. And so I joined all of the motivational groups. I mean, you name it. I crewed for motivational speakers for 5 years. I got deep into that mindset. I studied sacred geometry, pranic healing, soul realignment, the Kabbalah. I just got deeper and deeper and deeper into, well, what's this and what's this and what's this? And honestly, bottom line, Carrie, all of the studying and all of the learning is just superficial. It's when I learned to listen.
Ooh, yes. Yep. Do
And
you know?
follow.
Yeah, you are spot on. And I had a conversation with somebody that I've been working with for well over a year. And they said to me something today that they need a book. They need something. They said, "No, you don't. You do not need a book. You need to listen to the inner stirrings of your soul that will guide you." But it's so incredibly scary for most people that they would rather sit in the suffering or the conditioned fear, which I say because it really is conditioned to sit in fear, than to actually risk doing something about it. So you mentioned accountability. What did you do to combat that fear yourself?
Um, it's called doing something small that's fearful every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like stretching the elastic just a little bit, and it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger, right? I can't say I never broke myself. There were a couple of times I had to break down because I stretched too far, right? And then I learned, okay, that's pushing it too far, right? That's why you don't do this kind of stuff alone, right? That's
Yes.
why you have someone who knows when you're on the edge, and we don't want you to go over, but we want you to look over the edge, right? The saddest thing that I ever experienced as someone in this industry. So I was talking to a gentleman who definitely wanted to work with me. And he's like, I think you can help me, but I can't do it. And I said, why? He said, I went there with a shrink with psychiatry. I can't go there anymore. I said, I'm not bringing you there. I'm going to teach you how to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't comprehend.
Yeah.
He was that afraid of the pain that he experienced, not wanting to relive it again.
Yep. Well, you know, something that you mentioned that I really want to highlight for the community, and I align very much with, and is recognizing that you don't need to go into your past to heal the feelings that come up that may have been precipitated by the past event. So if you're feeling sadness in this moment, all you really have to do is experience that sadness and give it a space to live and breathe, and then you release it. And in doing that enough, you truly heal those emotions from that past. You release that trapped energy and can experience life from this present moment joyfully and in gratitude. But that's a hard concept to grasp, because even I remember reading Eckhart Tolle for the first time, and I was probably 20, maybe. I'm 43 now. I was young. And I remember being so frustrated. I threw the book. I couldn't even grasp the idea of being present in the moment. So how do you help people understand what that is, what that feels and looks like?
So I'll share two stories. I'll share one. Let me write them down before I forget. So one is the desert experience, and then the other is just in general. So years ago, like I said, I worked with motivational spirit speakers, and I'm out in Sedona in the middle of nowhere, crewing. And we were doing timeline work with the people that were there. And so I go to my cabin, my roommate comes with me, and I went, so-and-so's leaving. I got to go and knock on her door right now. Right? Go and knock on her door. This is why when you feel it, take action. Knocked on her door, and sure enough, she's packing her bags. And I'm like, first of all, I drove you here, so you think you're going to get an Uber or a cab in the middle of the desert? So you're not going anywhere tonight, right? So what's going on? And of course, this is when you know someone's on the middle of ready for a breakthrough. This place sucks. Right? I'm like, you know what I see? She goes, what? I see a little girl sitting on the floor cross-legged under a sink, and the curtains are open, and she is shaking. And she goes, I shake sometimes. I said, do me a favor. Don't leave tonight. But when you go to bed, you sit down in front of that little girl and you talk to her and you tell her, you're the adult, you will take care of her. You are here now. Whatever it is that comes up with her, tell her you love her, that tell her you see her, tell her you care. The next morning, there's a lake. She was walking around the lake, and you could see she was holding the hand of her little girl. That's being here now. Whatever imagery comes, it's your imagery.
Yep.
Talk to it.
Yeah.
Love it. Right? Care for it. Nurture it. The only person who can nurture your soul is you. And when you learn that, when things come up, Carrie, things process with me in a nanosecond.
Yeah, you and me both. It's so true.
Yes.
Because we've released all of the buried energy and emotion that's been packed down since in utero, essentially, and even before, but we won't even go there for some people.
Right.
But all of the energy that has been repressed and not allowed to be experienced sits in your body and in your psyche. And so you allow it the expression that it needs. But much to your point, if I experience suffering now, right? And I'll give you a really good example. Somebody I was working with for well over a year just today said they're no longer going to work with me because of my position on something, which is fine. I respect that. Doors closed. But there's still that emotion that you're going to feel, right? But I was able to recognize it. I honored it and I released it and I moved on. And I was able to come back to gratitude for the whole experience because it allowed me to see my growth and that person's growth and where they're at.
Right? Right. So let's talk a little bit about energy, because what happens is, think of energy as we're all energy. We're all emitting energy. Our cells are made up of energy. Our aura is made up of energy, right? And what happens is this energy, we suppress it and it gets tangled into a web. So think of it as it makes a knot. That knot in your stomach is energy, right? right? It's right. And that's what you're feeling. And when you get that emotional trigger, if you will, that energy is getting stuck. And so it's all resistance.
Yes.
Right? It's all resistance. And so if you can think of it as energy that's resisting, what you're doing is you're stopping the resistance. You're not resisting the emotion anymore. You're basically pulling up a chair and saying, sit down. In fact, that's pull up a chair and say, sit down, anger. Sit down right there in front of me. Let's have a talk about what you're angry about. What's going on right now? Is it real or is it imagined? Is there something I can do about it? Where do I have care, custody, and control? Right? Can I do anything? No. Then how do I get past this? You don't. You sit with me because I'm hurting right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll sit with you. Want some coffee? Right? Seriously.
It's so true.
Yep.
Yeah. And just be a witness to, not just your emotions, but, and because we are energy, the experiences that our body will provide for us. Because I tell people all the time, your body's going to respond way before your thinking mind will be able to put an emotion or a story behind it. And if you can get in tune with that, you can actually move through that experience even quicker because you recognize that you need to feel something and then you feel it and then it's gone.
And what happens is, I'll give you another story. So I wrote in 2 anthologies this year, plus 2 books of my own. In one of the anthologies, I talked about abandonment, my abandonment issues, right? And I went from in vitro, because it started in vitro, all the way through to when I, failed marriages until I recognized that I have something to deal with. And when I passed in my chapter, the woman who was running it, she goes, well, you must have released a lot. And I said, no, that's done. This is just the story I'm sharing, because maybe it'll help someone else. It was interesting putting all of the work I'd done in chronological order. That was new, right? And that gave me a new perspective, but there was no emotion anymore because it had dissolved.
Yeah.
Right? The story, it just became a story. It's like when you go to a movie, right? And you get wrapped up in the movie and you're crying and you're laughing. And it's on the screen. That's what your life is.
Yep.
Right?
It's absolutely true.
Yeah. So you choose.
You do, and that I think is where a lot of people struggle, because I share with them, you get to decide how you want to experience what's going on in this moment. And I'll give you a really good example. My older daughter is appalled with me because I refuse to go along with the masses and operate from a place of fear because of what's going on in Israel and Pakistan right now, right? Palestine. I won't. And my daughter, I was like, that's not the world I live in. And she rolls her eyes. She thinks, and I'm like, my reality is love. And if I allow myself to get steeped in fear, I'm actually perpetuating the very energy that has created this big disaster in the first place. So rather than doing that, I choose to stay in unconditional love and just send love to everybody. And in doing that, I'm combating from an energy standpoint the energy that is being thrown around by most people, right? And it's a choice. And I have a choice every moment. I can choose to be afraid. I can choose to listen to reports that could cause me to react in a way that doesn't feel good in my body. Or I can choose to connect with loving people such as yourself, people who are remaining in a positive view despite evidence, that says otherwise.
So
And that's all choice.
What I see, and this is my perspective, is, the great, and I'm using air quotes, awakening is happening.
Oh, yes.
Right. This is you and me, those of us who are working towards clearing our path, are finding each other and we're creating a collective,
Yep.
right? In the meantime, as that is getting stronger, because energetically we have already elevated the world, the people who are still wrapped in the lies and the stories are fearful.
Yep.
And what does fear cause? Right. And so you're going to see outbreaks. You're going to see this stuff happening because it's the spoiled child kicking and screaming, being dragged into the light.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, and that's what I try to tell people. You look at some of the great spiritual avatars, or even, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. These are people who created massive impact through the lens of love. And had they allowed themselves to fall into fear, there's no way India would have been freed from England without war, without violence. There's no way that we would have gotten so many of the marches and the community and the collective awareness around slavery and civil rights if it wasn't for love, right? And
right.
So it's just interesting to see how this is unfolding, because in the work that we do, it's so clear, and yet you just watch it and all you can do is sit and love, knowing that these, what people are putting out there is contradictory to really how they can help impact positive change toward it.
Right. They're actually adding fuel to the fire. I'm going to have a little drink here. One of the things I wrote down today, because it was in a podcast I had recorded, and I thought, this is profound. Lisa said something profound. I don't have to love it. I just don't have to hate it. Right?
That's so beautiful.
Right? That
Yep.
is so simple. So simple. I don't have to love what's going on. Right? And so that's part of the whole forgiveness mistake. Right?
Yeah.
Some people who struggle with letting go of attachments, or I have a lot of clients who really struggle with that because they think love is attachment.
Yep.
And expectations, and they can't untangle that. It really hurts for them to untangle that. And this whole attachment thing is where the stories are created. Right? I don't want to let that go because that's serving me. Right? And so I'm going to fight, and I'm going to attach a story about you're being wrong, trying to take it from me.
Absolutely. But all that does is that is the definition of existing in hell. I mean, you're literally creating your own suffering.
Right.
And that's the irony. I tell people all the time, every single day I laugh. I live in love. I have fun. I play. I live in joy. And it's not to dismiss. I'm not ignorant, but I'm not going to allow external circumstances control my inner peace and my inner experience, because that's the only thing I can control. And, you said that you don't have to love it, you just can't hate it. For me, it's about my job's not to judge it. Because if I believe in a higher power, which of course I do from an energetic standpoint in quantum physics, or if you go spirituality, either one,
it's there.
Right. I understand that there's something far greater than me out there. And for me to judge is saying that something far greater doesn't have an idea, or I don't know. And I do trust that things happen to help people move from the dark into the light. And sometimes it means more darkness before you start to see that light.
So here's go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
well,
go ahead.
Here's the thing. Most people are lazy. So they're comfortable in their misery. Until their misery, my brother used to say, you don't go to the doctor until the pain you think you're going to get from the doctor is less than the pain you're already in.
Mm-hmm.
So most people I mean, I didn't make a change until I was so miserable, so toxic, I was poisoning myself.
Yeah.
Right. It's at that point that I said, take control, baby, put your big girl panties on and take control of your life. Right.
Yep.
And so what's happening is an opportunity is being created for those who are not working on elevating their consciousness to say, hey, how dark do I have to get to wake you up? I'll go as dark as I have to get to wake you up.
And
And
some people never go there in this lifetime. You know, I see so many people. I think about Les Brown and his analogy of them standing, you know, their spirit standing over the grave saying, you didn't take control. You didn't. And but that's okay too. And I tell people, my job isn't to tell you or to um force you into work that you're not willing to or ready to step into. My job
right.
is to be a witness and to guide you when you're ready. And sometimes you start it and you need to stop, and you start it and you need to stop. But I truly believe, and maybe you feel differently, once you crack that experience of peace open, it's hard to revert.
Well, you can't. When I do a soul realignment with folks, I'm going to tell you what your soul gift is as a creation, what your characteristics are, right? And what stories from your past are you energetically still carrying with you? Those stories don't matter. It's the energy we want to talk about.
Yes.
Right? And the characteristics and your gift, I'm going to tell you when you're functionally working well, what shows up and what dysfunction looks like. Right? And with that information, you then can make changes and choices in your life that align with your spirit. That's the whole point, to align with your spirit. And when that starts happening, there's nothing but joy. I mean, so I'll talk about, you know, what I'm going through with the hat. Okay, perfect example. Listening to the universe a year ago, December. Stop dyeing your hair, Gail. Okay, whatever. I'll stop dyeing my hair. Can't dye your hair during chemo. Right? Stop dyeing your hair. Then I met with a spiritualist friend of mine. He's a channeler, and he goes, the universe is telling me you have something to overcome this year. And you will get the Christ energy, which is healing. Like, well, interesting. I'm looking forward to that. Then I get, go buy chemo hats. And I'm arguing with the universe as I'm on Amazon, right?
Yes.
Are you kidding me? What an insult this is. I have friends going through this. I'm not going to wear them. I won't buy them because you're telling me to, but I'm not going to wear them, right? Because I feel it's an insult, right? Gail, go on a plant-based diet. Sure, I was getting kind of sick of meat anyway. Okay, I'll go on a plant-based diet. Message after message. I had a psilocybin journey, and JC and Mary showed up with a blue blanket of healing. Then I get, Gail, go see your primary care. I have done naturopathic approaches for 6 years. Have not done Western medicine for 6 years. I'm like, okay, sure. Call the doctor, go for a checkup. I am in great shape. Nothing is showing. Do you even want a mammogram? And I get, yes, I guess I do. Right? And so was I surprised when I got the results I got? Of course not. The universe was preparing me for this.
Yep.
Right? Now, on top of that, after the dozens of tests that you go through, I come back with a diagnosis of stage 2 breast cancer. I'm like, well, okay. I'm going to start doing energy work and untangling the web. And I'm forgiving this and I'm forgiving that. And I'm doing a mantra as I'm doing this. A week later, I go in for surgery and I sing, we're off to see the wizard on the way to the operating room. And the diagnosis or the pathology result comes back. Stage 1.
Yep.
Gail, you're cancer free. But because of what we did, you have to go through chemo now because little cancer cells may be running around your body, right? All of this because I listened. If I hadn't listened, when would I have gone to the doctor?
Yeah.
Right? When there was maybe stage 3, then I would have some serious problems. This is a path I was given because I have to walk it to learn something. And I'm learning stuff every goddamn day.
Yeah.
It's a journey. It is exciting. It's fun. Do I like it in chemo? Heck no. But I'm learning from it.
And I love that. And see, so that's the thing that goes to choice, right? You could sit in fear and suffering and the victimization of getting diagnosed with something that every single person in a human body is going to be diagnosed with something. But instead, you chose to look at it as an opportunity to expand into deeper awareness, to learn, right, and grow, to share with your community and mine your experience in hopes to get them to look at things from a different perspective. And that's a choice. You're choosing to do that, and in doing so you were able to become cancer free because of the way in which you experienced this diagnosis and
Right.
from love instead of fear.
And I held back from letting a lot of people know until after the surgery because I didn't want their stories placed on me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned, so here's something really interesting. The day before surgery, I was talking with a friend of mine, and she's the warrior. She's a warrior ass, man. And she's like, you go in there and you fight with those nurses, you fight with those doctors, you fight with what you need. And I'm thinking, I'm not feeling fight. But you know what? I give you permission to fight for me. Energetically, you can fight for me. If you feel that's what I need, you can show up.
Yep.
Right. And that's where non-judgment comes in. Right. It's not, I didn't feel any negativity or any like, well, that's weird. None of that. It was like, well, this is what is important to her. She feels someone needs to be there to fight for me. So I'm going to let her do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And then you mentioned before I hit record, you're being presented with lessons in learning how to ask for help.
Right. So when we were talking before, I was saying that I learned a long time ago to accept offers. I had a dear friend of mine, she says, let me pay for lunch. And I was like, oh, I got it. She goes, Gail, when someone offers something to you and you say no, you hurt their feelings. Can you learn to take it in grace? And I was like, whoa, yes, I can. Right. And from that day forward, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But I didn't learn to ask because I had a mindset that when you ask for help, that means you're in need. And the word need means lack. And none of us want to function from a place of lack. And I had to reframe my perspective on need to, you do have lack, and it's not a bad thing. You don't have everything, Gail. You do need help. So who on your list can you call?
Well, what's interesting? I think I feel just a little differently. I think that our ability to ask for help proves to us that we don't have lack. Because if you think about it, all in energy exchanges is one person has something that the other person in that moment doesn't have. And that can be anything from compassion, empathy, money, love, knowledge. And so our ability to ask for is the universe's way of saying you never have to worry about your needs getting met because you'll always get your needs met. You just have to be open to receiving it in a way that we've been conditioned to believe makes us bad or
Right?
wrong.
Right. That's living in the collective, living
Yes.
as a collective. Right? Because what you have and what I have should fit together.
Yes.
There has to be a space, not lack, if you will, for it to fit together. So it really, and this is like, I'm just starting this journey. I have, a couple of months ago, and the lessons come so quickly that I don't often get a chance to even blog about it, because once I type out, "Whoa, this came up," then it's dissolved. And it's like, oh, okay, that's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I'm glad you said that. So for years, I've been a journaler, and I mean extensive write every day. This past year, I was just looking at my journal. I haven't even filled up one journal. And I'm like, I wonder what that's about, because it's not that I don't want to write. I realized two things. Much to your point, I go through it so quickly that I don't need to process it on paper.
Right?
But then also, it's like, to process it on paper, I'm revisiting a place that no longer exists. So
It's
it's
dead.
in my mind,
Right.
I'm reinventing the suffering for no reason because I already processed it, right? So you know what I've done? I've come up with a video newsletter, and I just video everything because I can jump on, hit it, send it, boom. I may have transmuted it, but it's there. And I don't have to, like, it's thought, it's felt, it's done, it's gone, it's gonna land where it's meant to be.
Because
Yeah,
it's just so quick. It's just so
it
quick.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So you mentioned, and I love just talking to the soul. So I never really think it, but you're a 4-time author, correct?
5.
5. Oh, okay. So talk to the audience about what your intent is behind putting pen to paper and sharing your thoughts with the world, just so that they can be inspired to pick up your books.
Well, so the first book, that was about women being accountable to being women in business, because business needs the feminine touch. They don't need more men.
Thank you.
Right. And I just felt I was transitioning into the entrepreneur world. I hadn't yet dropped that attachment to corporate. And I just felt that that story had to be told. After that,
Well, let's unpack that real quick for
okay,
anybody
I
who's
got so
curious.
many.
Yeah, I know, but I get that totally. I was not a successful leader until I was able to embrace my feminine, my intuition, my compassion, my empathy, my, all of these beliefs, but also keep the masculine, like that execution, that, much like you said, accountability. So what would that look like for a woman in business to start to show up in touch with their feminine energy alongside their masculine?
So for me, what happened is I learned to socialize rather than cram something down someone's throat, to socialize. So, hey, Carrie, we've got a project about to kick off, and here's the problem it's starting to cause. I think this impacts your department. I'm going to put the proposal together. Do you have someone that you can throw on my team? Yes, Gail, I got it. Okay, see you next week. Right. And you go and you explain first.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than giving an order. Number
Love that.
one. Number two, I'll tell another story. I was working in an insurance company. I was working in the financial department, and the chief financial officer comes out screaming. Payment had gone out incorrectly, and it was huge. Didn't get cashed, but it came back through the marketing department, which was an insult to him. So who did this? I physically got between him and my staff. It's my fault. You don't need to know who did this. This is my problem. You fix it, right? The poor woman was shitting right behind me.
Yeah.
Right. So I bring her into my office and I look at her and I said, it's my fault. There's something missing in the training. So let's go through it and see if we can fix it.
Yeah. Yep.
I trained her. It's my fault, period. Right. That is something most men won't do.
Most people. I mean, I'm much like you, you know. And again, I I look back at my leadership days, and for the first 10 years, my God, you know, I definitely I had to survive. So, but to your point, I think to take ownership and accountability, and I agree with you, you know, if there is issues, it is the leader's responsibility. It is their fault. And it's usually lack of communication and or training.
Right.
Um, or what I see a lot, setting clear expectations.
What? What? What?
So so you're right. I love that you took ownership, and how empowered did that person feel that you were like, let's go through this training. I take responsibility. And I'm sure felt like somebody finally got that person's back, because how often does that happen?
Not very. And I'll tell you, I have had staff literally offer to throw themselves on a train track for me.
I love
And
that. And that speaks to your feminine energy
right.
unequivocally. I had that same experience at my last corporate job, and I knew that to be true. And I ultimately left that role because of my feminine energy too. I trusted that there was no longer a place for me at that table, and that was okay. But it's hard to get there. So I encourage anybody watching this to get that book, because I think there is so much value in recognizing that you don't have to show up so authoritative and as a dictator to get the job done in a manner that creates exceptional results. I found I achieved my best results when I was tapped into my feminine energy.
Well, that and I felt I had to apologize for being a woman as I moved up the ladder. And you know, in the job that I got fired from, my soul, when I did my soul realignment, is truth and foresight. And I have to tell the truth. And when I told the truth in this company, I was told, we can't say that, we can't do that, bury that report, don't go there. And I'm like, but I'm offering solutions. I'm not just exposing a problem. There's a gap, we can fix it. No, we're not going to go there. So when I got on the chopping block, I knew the process. I knew what was going on. I was not surprised.
Yeah. Let me ask you something since you bring it up. You know, I see this huge shift in women, not that I don't love my women. There's no judgment. You know, all this narrative that we're doing these women's groups, it's all about empowering women. Women need to be, and I feel like the narrative needs to be, let's heal both men and women. And that's why I really have kind of stepped away from any specifically women aligned groups, right? Because the reality is men have just as much pressure to produce, to achieve, to caretake, to not feel their feelings. And I don't think we're going to experience the collective consciousness shift until we honor the fact that everybody has a journey to go through, and it's not just women, people of color, people in Israel. It's a collective. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. I have just as many men as women clients,
Yeah.
And men have imposter syndrome. Men have lack of self-worth. Men have doubt on their role and responsibilities. Men have pain and are angry and sad and scared. They have
Yeah.
the same problems. It's not male or female. It is the human condition because of
Mm.
the stories that we've bought into,
Yeah.
right? And what's happening now is we're uncoupling from the control of the stories.
Yeah.
And that's very confusing for some people now because that's been their reality. The whole point of the story is to create a boundary for you to live in. And we do need boundaries to exist in the third dimension.
Yep.
Right? But we need boundaries that are flexible because reality isn't real.
I love that so much. And,
Right.
I tell people I operate from a place of fluid discipline, right? We have this idea, you hear a lot of very well renowned motivational speakers, discipline, discipline, discipline. And don't get me wrong, there are things that are non-negotiable, right? My spiritual practice, my meditation, myself. But I don't wake up at 3 and do meditation 3 to 3:30, drink water 3:30 to 3.
Yeah,
Oh,
yep.
and I feel like that is something that is so off-putting to people. They hear this, I got to be so rigid. I'm like, no, you don't. You have to start really, really small with one change. I don't care if it's just drinking a glass of water every day and celebrating. If you can do that, you're teaching yourself you can trust yourself, which ultimately at the end of the end goal is that to trust yourself. Much like you said earlier, I had a business client who I felt like I was watching somebody go through a tourniquet of decisions, all because of, oh, what is it? Some energy healing. And I said, you understand that that's just a tool to help you tap into yourself. And the fact that you're leaning so heavily into this tool is actually taking you away from the very reason that it exists in the first
Right.
place.
Right. So many people need to. I have a client that I'm working with, and I'm helping her navigate her emotions as she writes her love story because her husband suddenly passed away, and it's quite the love story. And I said to her, I said, I'm not going to tell you how to lay out your book because you're going to get into the analysis paralysis of how the book should be laid out. I want you to just tell your stories as they come.
Yes.
You can organize them afterwards. We'll put them together afterwards. Just get it out as they show up because he's talking to you right now.
Yep.
And so, and they're amazing. It's an amazing love story. It really is. And someone has to see, although short, 4 years, and he passed, terrible accident. But those 4 years were like Wonderland. It was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful, right? So to share those short, it was beautiful. And then to be able to share how she's navigating through the grief of the loss is going to be so empowering to someone.
Yeah. Well, because, I do this series because I believe our stories are superpower. And when we transmute the pain, the suffering, the emotion, that story is what helps, honestly, the collective recognize that we are all one. Our story is the same. It may present in other forms, but at the end of the day, we all experience suffering. And we do one of two things with it. We're either victimized by it or we are empowered by it. You choose, much like you said. You take accountability, you take responsibility for your own choices in that story, and then you do the work. Much to your point, many people just want to pop a pill and think that that's going to help them, and that's not. You're just going to need more pills. And then you transmute the pain and your story will help somebody else. move through
Right,
that suffering.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. And then they become stories and for yourself. And
Yes.
as you, it's been my experience, as I heal myself, as, and again, I'm not broken, as I release the energy that's locked, I'm releasing ancestral energy as well.
Yeah.
And I see my daughter, who is an adult, observe me and gradually is shifting. She's like, Mom, I know I own this. I don't know what to do about it. I'm like, you just sit with it. You just need to sit with it. I know, I don't know how to get over it. And I won't coach her. I'm her mom. She needs to find someone else to
Yeah.
coach her, right? Don't cross the boundaries, because then I'll trigger her rather than,
Yep.
right? Um, and so now, so I see if she's shifting, then her son's going to see her shifting. So that's how we shift the ancestral pain
Yep.
and stories. Through the past, we release what we're hanging on to, and the future by modeling our behavior.
That is so profound and so beautiful. Well, I could sit here and talk to you till I'm
I
blue in
know,
the face, but
I know, we can't.
um, and I hope we do this again because it's a true gift to me as much as I know it's a gift to my community. But is there anything you would want to share? So, as Gail mentioned, she has 5 books and she kind of spoke about one. So, you can imagine the wisdom and the insight that can be had through her other 4 books. But I would encourage you to reach out to Gail, who has been doing this work and does this work much like me. And I think that's it, is you do the work. And that is why I love talking to you, because it it's apparent that it's not just words absorbed on pages. You're
Right.
meshed in it and you built in that. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yes, for sure. So the last book, Journey to Enlightenment, is really about empowering you to find yourself. And it is so powerful. It has hit and changed lives already. Please do go out and get the book. And on November 14th, well, actually not until January, but I'm kicking off the November 14th. I'm taking that book, and for the chapters that are associated with patterns on the trestle board, get the book and you'll find out what that means, right? And we're going to do experiential training in January around that book. So
Love.
connect with me on Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn, but I won't accept you unless you say, I saw you on Carrie Lewis's show.
Love it so much. All right, you hold so I can stop recording. Guys, thank you so much. I will add Gail's links in the bio, and I really encourage you to connect with Gail, because she is somebody you want to know if you're looking to expand, grow, and experience life from a place of joy, love, and compassion. So deep
Yes.
gratitude towards you. Let me end record.